And joining us now here in studio is Mike Schreiner, leader of the Green Party of Ontario and the party's candidate in the riding of Simcoe Grey. Welcome back to TVO.
It's a pleasure to be here, Steve. Thank you.
Nice to have you here. Okay, this is your first campaign as the leader. So what's the biggest difference between being the leader, responsible for 107 ridings, and just a guy running in one?
Well, I tell you what, the biggest difference is your schedule's intense. I start early in the morning and I'm on the go till late at night, but I'm loving every minute of it because it's a great opportunity to meet people and listen to their concerns.
Everybody knows, of course, that Elizabeth May won one seat for the Green Party in the last federal election back on May 2nd. In part because the party made a decision to pour a lot of resources into that one riding in BC so she could win. The flip side of that was your vote went down across the country. I'm wondering whether you'd make that same trade for this campaign.
You know, the Green Party in this campaign we're concentrating on a few key ridings because we think we're in a position to break through. But we're also doing a full provincial-wide leaders tour to support our candidates across the province because we think we have a clear, consistent, and compelling vision for Ontario, and we want to share that with as many people as possible.
Okay, which ridings do you think you have a shot at?
Well, we're clearly running strong in Guelph, Dufferin-Caledon. I'm running a great campaign in Simcoe Grey, historically Bruce Grey-Owen Sound, urban cores of Toronto and Ottawa. We've done well, and we're continuing to do well.
Okay, so 8.4% was your vote last time. Let's say this time you only got 3%, but you won a seat. Would you make that trade?
We'd be happy with that.
Okay. Jim Wilson, who you're running against, the Conservative former sitting member in that riding, got more votes in the last election than all the other candidates put together. So why'd you pick that riding to run in?
I have a very personal connection there. My wife and I own a home in Dunedin. We love it there. I love fishing there. I love hiking the escarpment there. I love eating the local food that's grown there. And so for me, it's about politics, but it's also about just personal family life and having a connection to that riding. And I think our message resonates well there, and the response to our campaign there has been fantastic so far.
Gotcha. Okay, the leaders' debate. You're not in. How did the consortium break the news to you that you were not going to be participating?
You know, two ways. One is they had a phone call that went to one of our members of our team to let us know, and then we didn't hear anything else about it until their press conference the other day. We've been trying to get just clear rules from the consortium. I think if we had clear, transparent rules, here are the thresholds that a party needs to meet. I think that would be good for democracy in Ontario because then everyone would know what the requirements are. Have
they not told you what bar you have to jump over before you can play?
That's not clear right now.
Well, presumably it's, well, I don't know, but presumably they said to you, you haven't got a seat, so you can't play.
Well,
is that right?
We think that's what it is, yes, but that's still not clear to me.
It's not clear. Well, okay, make the case. Why do you think, even though you don't have a seat in the legislature, you should be up there on that stage?
Well, we're the only party without a seat in the legislature running a full slate of candidates. We're the only party with a full-time leader. 354,000 Ontarians voted for us in the last election. We think those people need a voice at the seat, at the table for the leaders' debate. And you know what? The Green Party is offering a clear, compelling vision for Ontario in this election, and I think people need to have the opportunity to hear that.
And those that say once you put the Greens in without a seat, then we got to have the Family Coalition and the Reform Party and the Communists and all that, what do you say to that?
Well, I think, you know, if we had criteria around how many, running a full slate of candidates, for instance, or polling above, let's say, 5% from the previous election. I think there's some criteria like that that could set a threshold, but yet still be inclusive of parties who are just on the brink of breaking through.
Okay. I mean, is it a done deal? Are you going to sue them or something like that? Because you're not in right now.
You know what? I don't want to turn this into a legal battle or a debate about the debates. I want to talk about the issues that are important to Ontarians. I want to talk about jobs. I want to talk about saving money by saving energy. I want to talk about the sustainability of our healthcare system. I want to talk about fixing politics as usual in Ontario.
Let's do that right now. Some of the planks in your platform call for example, a price on carbon. How would that work?
You know what? We're talking about lowering taxes on small businesses to create good local jobs, lowering income taxes so we have more money to spend in our local economy, providing tax breaks to people and businesses to save money by saving energy, and balancing the budget by putting a small price on carbon. In British Columbia, where they've done this, we've adopted their model. They have the fastest growing economy in all of Canada next to Newfoundland, 65% approval rating for this policy, and this is the province that just voted out the HST. So we think this policy, our modernizing of the tax system will improve Ontario's economy, drive efficiencies in the economy, and strengthen our local economy by creating good jobs.
I wonder if part of the problem, though, when you introduce these kinds of major tax reform measures, and we've seen this in this province. I mean, people don't know Dalton McGuinty cut taxes. They don't know that because he raised taxes as well. And when you do this kind of a green shift, which is in effect what it is, how do you get past the problem that people will see the tax increases, but they generally forget very quickly about the tax cuts that come along with it?
You know what? Lowering payroll taxes on our small businesses will create good local jobs. Lowering income taxes will put more money in people's pockets to spend in our local economy. Helping people save money by saving energy. Those are things that make sense. They improve people's day-to-day lives. You feel the impact immediately. A small price on carbon will have a very marginal effect on people's day-to-day lives.
People don't see the cuts. They only seem to remember the increases. How do you get around that?
I just keep talking to people about it. When I have this conversation with people one-on-one, they say, you know what, Mike? The Green Party's plan makes the most sense. It's going to improve our economy. It's going to help us create jobs and be more competitive in a 21st century global economy.
Mike, you're the only party out there that's promising to balance the books 2 years ahead of everybody else. Everybody else at the moment is talking about 2017-18, and you're talking about 2015-16. That's, I guess, considered quite aggressive these days. How are you going to do that?
Well, first of all, every province, except for Ontario, including the federal government, has promised to balance their books by 2014. So even 2015 is a bit of an outlier compared to the rest of the country. We're going to sit down and say, we have to work with everyone. We'll delay tax cuts for the largest corporations until after the budget is balanced. We're going to end the subsidies for energy use that really benefit big energy users. That's one point. So the Liberals take 10% off your electricity bill. That's just a shell game with your money. So they're borrowing money to give you a little bit of a break, and they're either going to have to raise your taxes or put it on your kid's credit card. We're saying, you know what? Let's tackle energy prices head on by helping people save money by saving energy instead of subsidizing energy use, which is contributing to our deficit. And we're also saying to non-unionized public sector workers, the people with managerial positions well paid, that you know what, you need to take a pay freeze until after the budget is balanced. So we're asking everyone to contribute to that because we would rather see our hard-earned tax dollars spent on essential public services and not on interest payments on debt.
The history of this province, again, is that when you ask public servants to take a haircut, they're not really in the mood to do it. Bob Rae 20 years ago with the social contract. The Liberals today have discovered that they've asked people to take a freeze, but it's not really a freeze. What makes you think you can do it?
I think part of the difference is the Liberals are saying we're going to give tax cuts to large corporations, and you turn around and you go to public sector workers and you say, oh, step up to the plate. Well, of course they're not going to. It's like, why do we have to sacrifice and no one else has to sacrifice? And we're saying, everyone has to contribute to this, because we want our hard-earned tax dollars spent on essential public services, not on interest payments on debt. Let's get our debt under control. Everyone can contribute to that. That's the Green Party's way of bringing a financially, socially, and environmentally sustainable perspective to issues.
Okay, let's talk energy. I guess the history in this province for almost 80, 90 years has been to have a large, centrally run, energy-generating entity. Once upon a time, Ontario Hydro, now it's Ontario Power Generation, and it essentially is in charge of, the vast majority of the energy generation in this province today. What do you think of that approach?
We think that's old thinking, 20th century thinking. It's time to move into the 21st century and move to a decentralized, distributed, highly efficient, and affordable ways of generating energy. It starts with conservation and energy efficiency. The cheapest way to address our energy needs is to reduce demand, save money by saving energy. Then we need to move forward with renewable energy projects that are much more affordable than these big centralized plants, like, for instance, investing in new nuclear. And we have so much capacity in Ontario for hydroelectricity, for solar, for biomass, biogas, wind, a whole diverse range. Oh, we're taking minimal steps. And the unfortunate reality is the way in which the Liberals and Conservatives are actually presenting false choices on this issue. So the Conservatives are saying, we will kill green energy, and that's going to set Ontario back a generation. But the Liberals are saying, you know what, we're just going to impose corporate projects on communities without their participation or without local benefits. And the Green Party is saying the way to roll out renewable energy in this province is to bring money into our communities, ensure local decision making, local ownership, and that the financial benefits flow to our local communities. That's the appropriate way to move forward with our energy future.
I'm not saying this is the case, but some of the opposition to having wind farms, for example, not in people's backyards, but you know what I'm saying, up in some of the more rural areas of the province, is people just don't like it for whatever reasons. They don't like the sight, they don't like the sound, whatever it is. Even if you give people local decision making, is that going to change anything?
Absolutely will. The thing is some of these projects are being proposed in locations that make no sense. And so if you have community participation and you bring stakeholders together and you say, you know what, it's okay to develop projects like this here. It may be okay to develop here, and it's absolutely not okay to develop it here. Then you integrate in local ownership. You ensure the money's flowing into our local communities, not going out of our local communities. I look at a place like Germany. 3 million people own solar installations and are earning revenue. 250,000 have an equity stake in wind projects. That is not how it's being delivered in Ontario, and the Green Party will do it in a truly sustainable green way. Local ownership, local decision making, local benefits.
Well, from what I've heard, the Liberals would like to go more towards that German approach, but they can't get people hooked up to the grid. That's the problem. We don't have the infrastructure to get, to make people partners in all of that effort. I mean, that's a legitimate concern, isn't it?
Well, part of the problem is the grid access is being reserved for multinational corporations. In my own backyard, right near Dunedin, a large multinational corporation has rights on the grid, and so now a number of farmers who want to hook up a solar installation, or a small business that wants to hook up a solar installation, can't access the grid because it's being reserved for a foreign company. We think it should be the exact opposite. Let's give priority access to locally owned, community-based projects ahead of larger multinational corporate projects.
Which is the large multinational in the case you're talking about?
WPD in this particular case was a German-based company.
Okay.
But we're seeing this with Samsung. I mean, same thing with Samsung. I know tons of folks in places like Haldeman, Norfolk, for instance, that can't access the grid because grid capacity has been reserved for Samsung.
Well, they're going to spend $7 billion here, so they want something in return for that. Is that not a good deal?
I think backroom deals are not the way to go, Steve. There were a number of companies that I've spoken with that have talked about they were going to put in manufacturing facilities and decided to back off because why would you invest in Ontario if one company gets a special deal and it's not fair for everyone?
Would you kill the deal?
Well, it's too late to kill it now, and we don't even know the contents of it, so how can you say, I don't know what the penalties are? So without knowing that type of information, it would be hard. I think it would be irresponsible to make that kind of commitment.
Conservatives are doing it.
Well, like I said, I think it's irresponsible to make that kind of commitment without knowing what the penalties are. But I can tell you, Green MPPs will fight against backroom deals because we think all businesses, all people should have a fair, transparent, and level playing field for everyone.
Okay, I think one thing we really need to spend a little time on here is the whole nuclear question.
Sure.
Because I know the Greens are against nuclear, but the reality is nuclear is more than half of our power generation mix right now. How do you keep the lights on and get rid of nuclear at the same time?
Well, first of all, I should be very clear that we're not about eliminating nuclear right now. We think that the money that's been invested in our nuclear facilities we should use till end of life. No question about that. So if Ontario could just reach the same levels of energy efficiency per capita that a state like New York State, and they have iPads and big screen TVs and lights and a very similar lifestyle to ours, we could actually reduce the need for growth in demand. So then it's like, well, how do we transition away from big, expensive nuclear, which, by the way, no nuclear facility in Ontario's history has ever come in on budget or on time. We're still paying the debt for the last round. And it's like, do we want to pile on more debt on ourselves and on our kids and on future generations when there are cheaper alternatives? The cheaper alternatives are, we still have about 5,000 megawatts of deployable hydroelectricity in Ontario. We have significant amounts of combined heat and power, which is just stop wasting natural gas, use it to heat and produce electricity. And then we have opportunities still in other renewables, biomass, biogas, wind, solar. We need to invest in a smart grid so we can fully utilize intermittent renewables in an efficient, effective way.
I know you guys always say that, but then I always hear so-called experts say, these guys don't have an answer for when the sun isn't shining, the wind isn't blowing, the water isn't flowing as hard as it used to. We need nukes for that base load of power. Isn't that true?
Nuclear is completely inflexible power. So if we pour billions into it, we won't be able to take advantage of any of the technological advances that we know are happening or already happening. Even a company like General Electric, which has built many of the nuclear facilities in the United States, has said we're putting our money into solar because it's going to be less expensive and more reliable moving forward into the future. That's where the economy's going. Let's not lock ourselves in the past. Let's put ourselves into the future. We have a plan that's realistic, affordable, and effective.
Okay, the Green Party actually, I mean, obviously people associate you with the environment and energy policy and that kind of thing, but you do have positions on other issues, and let's spend a few minutes here going over some of them. We have in this province today a publicly funded public school system and a publicly funded Catholic school system. What would you propose to do about that, if anything?
We need to modernize our education system, and we think we need a system that is fair, inclusive, equitable, and reflects the realities of 21st century Ontario. And so what we're proposing is a citizens' assembly to look into our school system, deal with the constitutional and historical issues around separate school funding, engage citizens in how do we move forward to modernize the system, to make it more fair, inclusive, equitable, and update it for the realities of the 21st century. Okay. And we need citizen input on that.
Maybe I'm reading between the lines here, but fair, inclusive, and flexible to me sounds like you're in favor of a single school board system as opposed to public and Catholic. Is that true?
We certainly think that Ontario should move in that direction, no question about it, but I think citizens have to have a role in making decisions around issues that have that kind of constitutional and historical relevancy to, goes back to the founding of, the British North America Act. So, I think we have to engage citizens because I believe in local decision making. I believe in citizen engagement to point the best way forward of how do we modernize our system.
So if I understand you believe in a single unified school system, but how we get there is what you're interested in getting citizen input on?
And also not imposing it. Like if through a citizens' assembly it's decided that that's not the best way forward, and there's another way forward to have a fair, inclusive, equitable, modern system, I'm fine with that too. I just think we have to engage citizens in coming up with a solution that's going to create a modernized education system for us.
Would one of the potential options that you would want considered be funding other faiths and other faith-based schools as well?
I don't think that's the direction we should go, and I think the last election clearly established that. So I seriously doubt we would move in that direction.
I guess the idea would be if you can't take money away from the Catholic system, then maybe giving money to other religions is the way to make it more fair, inclusive, flexible, equitable.
One way to do it is potentially to have a single school system where you've got opportunities for all religions to have space and time within a single school board. And so I think there's a variety of options that can be on the table, and that's exactly why we need citizens to be involved in helping us chart the right way forward.
Okay. Mike, last couple of questions here. What would constitute for you a satisfactory outcome in this election campaign?
Two things. One is we want to talk about the issues that matter to Ontarians. We want to, if the discussion is about how do we create good local jobs by supporting our small and medium-sized businesses and family farms to strengthen our local economies, helping people save money by saving energy, not subsidizing energy use, talking about the sustainability of our healthcare system, talking about protecting our farmland and our farmers and our clean water from senseless projects like this mega quarry in Melanchthon Township, having a policy discussion about how we chart a financially, socially, and environmentally sustainable future for ourselves and our children and future generations. If we can push that and have that discussion, that would be a huge success. And then we think having at least one, if not more, green MPPs at Queen's Park to ensure that those questions get asked, that those issues are brought to the table, we would consider that a huge success.
I didn't hear on that list anywhere winning a seat.
Oh no, winning a seat, absolutely. There were two. One is
Did I miss it? Did you say it? And
I did.
Okay.
I did say it.
Then I missed it.
So one is the talking about the issues that matter,
right.
And two is having a seat at Queen's Park to be able to continue that conversation over the next 4 years.
Okay. I asked Elizabeth May this question tongue-in-cheek once upon a time, and she gave me an answer that I did not expect. So we're going to end on this. What's your favorite color?
It's green. No question about it.
She said blue.
That's my second favorite color, actually. I love the blue sky, but green is my favorite color. My kids know it because everything they buy for me is green.
Well, you and Elizabeth May have two things in common then. Blue as a favorite color on the list, and the same birthday. Did you know you have the same birthday?
You know what? It's a prerequisite to be the leader of the Green Party. And so, Steve, you can join us anytime because I know we share a birthday as well.
We are all part of the June 9th club, aren't we?
Absolutely.
Okay. Mike Schreiner, it's good of you to come into TVO tonight. Thanks a lot for your time. And now we're going to parse your party's platform with a group of political observers. So thanks for coming in tonight.
Thank you. I appreciate it.